So today I have some things queued up in the space of Christianity. And most of the time, when I just put stuff together for a demonstration, it's typically because I had an experience throughout the week, previous week, rather maybe questions on certain things, a perspective on certain things, and it inspired me to put something together. So I was going to give you all that background. So Christianity was a big thing this week for me. And what are the Moors' position on Christianity? I got that from, I was in Long Beach, I was in Garden Grove, and Cerritos this past week, different locations. And people just came up, was like, what's the Moors' position on Christianity? With a person that's Christian, that still likes what y'all doing, could we be down with y'all? So that's what inspired the demonstration for today. And as I'm going through the demonstration, this is just suggestions on how to approach this space too, dealing with Christianity when you're dealing with the people. Um, Intellect over combativeness. Choose the path of least resistance. Choose the more intellectual road. So Christ, Christianity, Christendom, and Christmas are derived from the Sanskrit word Krishna and the Egyptian word Christ or Christ. And we've been through multiple demonstrations, just substitute Egyptian for Moorish, because we already know that goes to Tamaray, which land of the Moors, Ta Terra Moray, ancient tongue for just saying Moor, so land of the Moors, loosely referred to as Egyptian. So once again, Christ, Christianity, Christendom, and Christmas are derived from the Sanskrit word Krishna and the Moorish word Christ. The word Christ, Christianity, Christendom, and Christmas are neither Latin nor English words. How can these words apply to the Europeans in any way? So that's another layer too. Um, because we threw Christmas in there for right now. It's a white man's holiday, all that type of stuff. Christians, blonde hair, blue eyed people forced us to turn Christian. That's another thing that most, what I interface. So that whole type of arena, our people's thinking we got to demystify, and it's all relative. Um, so how can these words apply to the Europeans in any way when they are in fact Sanskrit and Moorish in origin and over 10,000 years old? So when you say over 10,000 years old, that's why they say the Moorish flag behind me is over 10,000 years old, right? Just to cross reference. We're cross referencing right now, um, and tying things together. Well, I'm tying things together. Europeans have distorted the original meaning, culture, and philosophical application of Christianity to disassociate the Aboriginal and indigenous people of the world from their ancient mind, science, geometrical, astronomical, and cosmological knowledge. There are many other words for which the Europeans have created connotative meanings to steal the birthrights and sovereignty of the Aboriginal and indigenous people of the world. Aryan is a word whose original meaning is not known to the general public and whose connotative meaning has instilled fear in the general public. Today, in the mainstream public arena, Aryan is viewed as a European hate group. These groups use the term Aryan race, but the etymology of Aryan will provide the public with the insight into why Europeans reconstructed its meaning. Aryan originates from the Sanskrit word Arya and means noble. It is a national title in Hindustan right now. All right, so of course we went into this last couple weeks in a different angle, but for one, I'm recording, and for two, repetition. You got Christmas, Christianity, Aryan, that whole space is looked at from an improper lens for the most part. So we want to come in as the Moors and help them understand from this vantage point of how we're looking at this space. So now, Christianity. From the Moorish perspective, Christianity, what is that from Moorish perspective? What is Christianity to the Moor? Right. So Christianity, the ancient Moorish science of physiological regeneration and illumination of the mind. Christianity and its secretion of oil in the brain. So we're dealing with the Christ. Because remember, it's really Krishna. We're dealing with the more ancient, right? So when we're dealing with Christianity, we're dealing with Krishna. And what is that? Activation of the Christ or knowing how to activate the Christ. So Krishnos, dealing with etymology, means oil. So Christos actually means oil. George W. Carey and Enzes and Dora Perry in their book God Man, The Word Made Flesh, analyzed the word Christ in its proper epistemology. Christ is a substance, an oil or ointment, contained especially in the spinal cord, consequently in all parts of the body, as every nerve in the body is directly or indirectly connected with the upper brain. Solar plexus, or the coda inqua, or the tail of the horse, composed of a thick, oily, salty substance. Now we're dealing with Christianity from an ancient mind frame. The process of Kundalini. The process of how to have it ascend, etc. All right, so before I continue that demonstration here, I want to go to the Bible. What I'm highlighting in the Bible is Mount Calvary. Mount Calvary in the Bible. Calvary, also known as Golgotha, is the traditional location in the holy city of Jerusalem where Jesus Christ was crucified. So what have you learned? Most of our Christian brothers and sisters that's heavy in the church, they go to the Bible study, let deal with them with this piece of information that they should be very familiar with. Mount Calvary is the location where, right in the holy city of Jerusalem, where Jesus Christ was crucified. That's the story, right? All right, so the term Calvary carries deep symbolic significance, embodying the themes of self-sacrifice, divine
I'm not
love,
quite sure how to help you with that.
divine love, salvation, and redemption. Um, okay, that's my screen. All right. So keep that so keep that in mind as I continue the demonstration. All right. So now, Mount Calvary, that's a location in Jerusalem where Yahshua got assassinated. That's the story. We're gonna get into the more science of it, of how that's a symbolic story. Etymology of Calvary. Calvary is derived from the Greek word Golgotha, and it means skull. The fluid, oil, or marrow which flows down the spinal cord comes from the upper brain, the Greek word for heart. Now, pineal gland and pituitary gland. Let me check the chat before I continue. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And neuromelanin produced from the pineal glands as well. Yes, sir. So colostrum is surrounded by white matter in the brain. The external, let me blow this up. Let me blow this up for y'all that may be reading along. I'm gonna blow it up a little too big, right? Bam. Okay, that should be good enough. That should be, I keep forgetting they can do that on their own too, but I want to see it big myself.
For the
Um,
video.
yes, for the video, yeah, for the future recording, yeah. So so colostrum is surrounded by white matter in the brain. The external and the extreme capsule are directly next to the colostrum. The colostrum is located below the insular cortex. The colostrum is also lateral to the putamen. Now, the putamen in Latin means just to think. It's connected to the substantia nigra, which is a black substance. The substantia nigra appears dark because it contains high level of what the brother say? Neuromelanin, right? We're
Mhm.
dealing with Christianity right now. More is our Christian. We practice Christianity. We was practicing that before Constantine and the crew reconstructed it. We was practicing it Mauryan dynasty time. That's why I tell you it's a Sanskrit word. We're Sanskrit. That was the jurisdiction at the time of the Mauryan dynasty, which now called India and Pakistan, the Moors over there, Sanskrit. And they was practicing Christianity. The Olmecs, the Mayans was practicing Christianity. That's why they got the dragons and the serpents all in the temple. So they knew about activating the Christ, right? So this is why Moors is Christian. This is why we embrace Christianity.
Muslims.
We Muslims, right? Muslims, Christians.
And you understand yourself and how your body works.
And that's
So
why I've been like posting like Christian rap like lately, but I put like I'm not Christian connotatively, but I'm listening a different way. But as a more people see me post a Christian rap, think, oh, like what more is doing listening to Christian rap, blah blah like that. But this kind of goes hand in hand. Me thinking about that, I was like, wow, but I'm like, it's really tight. But I don't want you to think like I'm vicariously listening to it. You know what I mean? As a more, I'm like, okay, me sharing this kind of helps. It's like, okay, I can see the talent and I can, see the Moorish in it, and not just, following blindly, not saying what the brother's doing because, how are you giving it up, you're giving it up, but we know how, there's metaphysically looking at it. And this is like, so I put like, no disrespect to your music, but kind of Taylor, I'm not a Christian, but this is still, I feel it. But yeah, I yield. It was just triggering me. I was like, oh wow, that's crazy. I've been posting Christian rap like lately. That's what I've been.
Islam, Islam.
Hmm. I wanted to add too, like as the more we understand like vibration, right? So even if you're saying it's Christian rap, it's still something that, helps you get to a higher vibration, right? Brings the spirits up. So I don't think there's anything wrong because we understand what it does for us, right?
Yeah, yeah. As long as
Yeah,
that's the mind frame.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from that
yeah.
like perspective.
That's like
I
looking.
listen to Christian rap.
Not saying that body is like. I guess other Moors be like, "What are you doing that for?" It's like I get it, but if you can see past, the connotative part of it, you can really
Hmm.
look at it, see the more science in it. And like you said, we've been doing it for Constantine, you know. But it's a great way for me to, internally look at myself. You know what I mean?
Islam. Yeah, appreciate that. You sharing. Yazir Bey, Islam, peace and love.
Peace and love, Yazir.
Islam Morse. Peace
Islam.
Um, okay. So the colostrum releases an oily substance that is used as basic material by the pineal gland to secrete a yellow substance to the pingala in the pituitary gland to secrete a white substance to the ida. And this is where you get the term land of milk and honey. All right. So that yellow substance and that white substance, right? The yellow being the honey, the white being the milk. So that's a symbolic. These are the symbolic expressions. Oh, that's the land of milk and honey. But everything has a as within, as without, right? So we're dealing with the as within degree of expressing the land of milk and honey. And then as without would be the land, the Americas, the old world, where all the ancient pyramids is at. Now we're talking about literally a land mass. All right. So we need to know all degrees of how we're talking because uh, most of the people are not looking at it from a 360-degree perspective. Things are parables, things are anthropomorphic, things are symbolic. Some things are literal in the Bible, but your head has to be on a swivel and know that it's a lot of things going on at once and not be, you know what I mean? So that, and as I talk with the people, that tends to most of the time be the issues. They're looking at it from this story is the truth. This will happen literally, this type of stuff. So we want to assist them because their Akashic record will wake up once they start hearing this. All they gotta do is just hear it. They might even just get it in their system, the raw truth, and they at least again start thinking. You know what I mean? Um,
Islam, I had a question.
um,
I've been anthropomorphic. What does that word mean? Is that I think I'm getting confused with another word as far as like when it's like a animal having human features or something like that, or
well, you're taking like how they do how Jesus is really talking about the Son. That's an example how they took elements or attributes of what the Son is doing, and then they just put a human on there.
Having human characteristics.
Yeah, they give human characteristics to things that are going on in nature.
correct? There we go. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that I think that's the way when they gave it the example. That's not the definition that I gave, but that was the example that somebody gave me. Like, what is a Family Guy? The dog that has human characteristics, and that's so I associated with that. But that makes sense as far as the example you gave me. Okay, but thank you.
Yeah, that's why every time I talk about Yahshua in the Bible, it's always he's the light. You know, he's always the light, like this, because it's symbolic for the sun and other things. Because the light also represents the degree of knowledge that you know if you in the truth. If your lifestyle is in the truth, for one, you know the truth as a Gnostic. You know all the inner workings of the world, the sciences, the liberal arts, how to use vibrations for medicine, how to use earth for medicine. You know jurisprudence. You know how to use the stars to travel the sea. You know martial arts. If you are a master to that degree, um, peace and love to DL Islam.
Peace and love, yeah.
Peace and love, Morris.
Yeah. Peace and love, bro.
Peace and love.
Yeah, so if you're a master to that degree, now you are the light. You're in the light by being in harmony with nature and comprehending it. That was my point. I don't want to lose track of my thoughts. Um, so everything we've been talking about is Christianity. That's what we're dealing with. All right. So the oily substance, the Christ, moves down the spine to the solar plexus. Here, the oil is transformed into a psycho-spiritual seed, which then moves through the body. So keep in mind what we were dealing with initially. We were dealing with this verse in the Bible, right? We're dealing with Mount Calvary. Mount Calvary in the Bible. And then we started off by saying, oh, Mount Calvary is also known as Golgotha, the traditional location of the holy city of Jerusalem. where Jesus Christ was crucified. And that's to answer the brother question. This is anthropomorphic. Right here, look. They taking this story. Oh, Calvary is where Jesus got killed. It's the holy city in Jerusalem. But the demonstration is showing you that that's an internal working. So the Christ or the oil or the land of milk and honey or the gold sappy substance and the milky substance that travels up and down the spinal cord, it gets crucified at some period within its travel and then regenerates and starts back again, works its way down. Right. Or you could, through intercourse or whatever, you're killing the Christ or by releasing. Or it gets killed up here in the Abdullah Abangada, the Medulla Oblongata, right? So that's all we're doing is taking the curtains off of the anthropomorphic aspect of what you're just simply reading here. Because if you just simply read this, you're going to think, oh, Jerusalem, he got crucified over here. But even though they tell you some of the truth, that's why the Noble Joe Ali said it's truth and falsehood is strangely mixed. Because as you keep reading, it says, look, the term Calvary carries deep symbolic significance. With what? Divine love, self-sacrifice, and salvation and redemption. I mean, redeem. So, how do you activate the Christ? I mean, you have to master yourself, self-sacrifice. Once you got divine love, you climbing that ladder up towards a heart chakra, but you're not getting to the heart chakra unless you master the lower, right? So that's that redeeming, the redeeming aspect of it, because you're not going to get it immediately. You have to go through some trial and tribulation, but you're going to understand that's what you're going to have to do, is be in a heart chakra perspective when you're dealing with humans to reach that salvation. Also, when you look over here, it said Calvary is derived from the Latin, meaning skull. So aren't we talking about the inner workings of the skull? Where the medulla at? That's the truth and falsehood strangely mixed part. I was really getting at is that part. It's Calvary, which means Golgotha, is derived from skull. So we just making it make sense for the people because people ain't going to draw these conclusions, but they do sprinkle the truth right there for you, right? All right, so I really wanted to catch Yazzie Bay up to speed on what I wanted to summarize. I'm talking about Christianity right now. And I've come across people throughout this past week that wanted to know the Moorish position on Christianity or how do we look at it. So that's what inspired this demonstration. So we're looking at Mount Calvary. Matter of fact, let's look at Mount Calvary. Now we're looking at Mount Calvary. We're looking at that skull. Everybody see Mount Calvary? Everybody looking at Mount Calvary? We ain't talking about some spot in Jerusalem where Jesus got killed. We talking about where that's the Christ, the serpent, right?
Did you read Islam? Did you read the verse that was associated with this too? Or not verse, but what's it called? Scripture?
No. I just because it's mentioned in the Bible multiple times, so I just put in a search.
Okay.
What is Mount Calvary talk in the Bible? What is Mount Calvary? So it just gave you an overview of like, oh, this was a location where, Jesus got assassinated pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But you can get more refined and find little verses too, but I wanted to give an overview.
Yeah, I got you. I'll check it out. I'll do a little more research too. Go ahead, stand up.
But whatever verse that you find, the bottom line, Mount Calvary, they're gonna make it seem like this was a spot where Jesus got killed.
Like it's a physical place.
Yeah.
Or outside the body.
Yeah. You're right. So we're just talking about where either you ejaculated through intercourse and killed the Christ, or got killed on this travel up to the Medulla Oblongata and got regenerated. and came
I
back
didn't even
down.
put that together as far as ejaculate. So either it comes out, or either it goes that way or it goes up.
Yeah,
That's what. Okay, I didn't even think that ejaculation.
yeah, yeah. You killing off the Christ. All right, so
And
So,
that's
so
crazy.
what happened when it goes back up, Martha? When it goes back up into the brain, what does it do? Regenerate itself and move back down again?
yep,
Yeah,
To Christ.
yeah, yeah. It gets activated because when it go up, you activating the Christ.
just say you went through.
Um,
Oops,
so
sorry.
once that pineal gland pop, it's done its job. You're gonna reach that euphoria. You're gonna have that clarity, insight. But then now it's traveling back down, right? And then if you don't kill it off down there, it's gonna come back up. Um, but yeah,
And you saying when it travels down, you chill it off when you ejaculate?
intercourse. Yeah, when you spill the cup, because the Christ is the fluid. Once it gets past the root, the land of milk and honey, that gold substance and that sappy substance, once it comes past the solar plexus into the root, it becomes that seed that we read earlier. Right now, it's in a seed form, so now it can impregnate. But solar plexus upward, it's the substance um that is used to activate the Christ up here, your pineal. But once it,
Hey, that's.
you know,
Oh, excuse me, Islam. That's Is it? Would that be another form of alchemy as well? Because you're creating, you know,
yeah,
creating life. You create, then it's just going up. You creating ideas, transmutation in some form.
yep,
Yeah, a lot of I hear a lot of like very, very like successful people know about it's called like semen retention.
hmm
And they practice that semen
Yeah,
retention to be able to have a more clear mind and to be able to, be like, yeah, be in a Christ mode.
right. They also
yeah.
call that sex magic.
Hmm.
It's the same thing.
Sex magic. When you abstain from sex, is sex magic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you able to basically, yeah, not spill the cup and know why you're doing it or what's your intention behind it, right? Because
Right.
you want to have more clairvoyance,
And
I would
I
say
know
that,
y'all speak of like Kundalini. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, there's like I feel like when it comes to sex magic, there's a few different things. So it's like you can still have the intercourse, but not
Mhm.
spill the cup, right? That means you're
Right. I was
cycling the
just gonna say
energy.
that.
You cycle the energy like this. So now it stays in the loop, right? When you're with your partner.
That's
Having an
very,
orgasm but not
very hard to
ejaculating.
do.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, but
That's
there's
very
also, sorry, are you saying something, Hassan?
Yes, ma'am. That's very hard to do sometimes, certain instances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's a practice. It's a slow practice, right? So that's why it's something that's practiced daily, right? To be able to breathe through it. Because what it is like utilizing the breath to meditate while you're doing that, to cycle the energy, to
Would
calm,
that be
right? When you're
Kundalini? Would that be
It would be, I guess
it
like a
or like
practice of like,
no
yeah,
Kama
pretty
Sutra?
much.
I think one of
both.
those. I'm not sure. Both of those. Okay.
Yeah, because that's what we're dealing with. Like I say, it's the Kundalini, but it ends up becoming seminal fluid. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
So you gotta have intercourse without thinking about intercourse.
Yeah, you
You just
can't.
can't get too excited.
Yeah,
Right?
if you want
I
to control your breathing,
mean,
Yeah, it's a control of your breathing because that's
yeah,
going to control your body.
yeah, because see, most people be hyperventilating.
let me
See,
explain something. I'm sorry to interject. Now listen,
be
let's
hyperventilating,
be
man.
very realistic here. If I breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth, right? You're telling me that's going to help me not, you know.
No, just out the nose.
It's a discipline and a practice, though. I would say it takes time to build something like that up.
You're not gonna be a vet off top. Don't. Yeah,
Right
yeah.
off the top.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, wow, that's kind of tough, man.
You gotta think of it like
You
working
gotta look at it in a whole nother perspective, man.
like
That's a whole nother level, man.
This is
That's
like God level though, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
breathing
The,
brings down
the,
your blood pressure, and that's what you're controlling
Yeah,
that
control.
whole little
Hmm.
thing.
right?
And
Self
I
mastery.
like working out, like you can literally pass out if your heart is beating too fast. So if you're breathing properly, you can probably do next sets. When you're doing coitus, if you're breathing properly, you won't, jump off the ship early. You know what I mean? So think of like it as blood pressure or like a hose pipe. If you hold the hose pipe tight, stops. You know what I mean? But you got to like slowly let go of the hose pipe so it don't like, you know what I mean? And look at it like, breathing like that. It's like blood pressure, bro. And like you ain't gonna be a vet up top, like bro said, but the breathing controls your blood pressure in your body, like your heart. So with anything, if you're like, trying to lift something or trying to get busy, it's all about blood pressure. You know what I mean? It takes blood pressure to do anything and breathing. So as long as you're breathing straight, your thinking will be straight. You know what I mean? And you won't even be thinking about jumping off the ship early because you're breathing properly and not really focus on what's going on at hand. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, see, that's gonna be a very hard problem for me. I
yeah,
keep my integrity intact. I'm not
yeah,
embarrassed.
it's all
You know,
right. Yeah,
I'm
yeah, but
telling y'all the truth. Like, if I'm laying with my wife and we're engaged in that type of act,
gotta
it's
breathe.
gonna be hard. I can breathe, brother, but I'm
Yeah,
still gonna be thinking about
the
what's
breathe.
going on at that
The,
present moment. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah, yeah. The breath's got to go with the movement. So let's say I'm lifting a weight, so I'm go 1,
Hey
2.
man,
You know
I
what
got a
I mean?
lot of
So
work to do.
breathe
I
got
ain't
to
even
go
gonna
with the
tap
motion.
into that yet. I can't do it. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
yeah,
this
too
guy named
young.
Wim Hof. Like it,
yeah.
it tells you how important the breathing is. Like
Yeah.
he's the main one that, or not say the main one, but the most known for it, Wim Hof. Like
Hmm.
his breathing technique, he can. They put diseases in his body and he breathe it out and something. Like I'm paraphrasing, but he
Yeah. I
literally just off the breath.
I be following
Hmm.
the Iceman.
Iceman, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his wife passed, and he found a way in cold water to, I won't say cope, but I'm gonna use the word cope. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? That was his way of like connecting, with his wife, whatever. I'm really, like bro was saying, paraphrasing, but through
Yeah.
all that, he created like a breathing regimen, and he can be in like in the coldest of weather. You know what I mean? And he has like maybe 8 or 9 minutes of a tutorial on how to breathe. And I've personally done them before. You know what I mean? So, and once you're like, and dealing with like heavyweight, quote unquote, you want to be breathing properly because if your belly isn't full of air, it's gonna hurt your spine. You know what I'm saying? So if your sternum isn't full of oxygen or all that, you have a potential to hurt yourself. You know what I mean? Or let's say
Yeah.
you're making coitus or whatever, you have the potential to create a child that you didn't want. And so they go hand in. So I would say look at the Iceman breathing techniques, and that could probably transfer. But like you said, you're gonna be a vet up top, but just something to help. You know what I
Got to
mean?
start somewhere.
So yeah, yeah. But I yield though. So,
Islam, I yield.
Wow. Right. So Christianity is just all this is Christianity, right? Just to reel it back in from
Mm-hmm.
Moore's perspective. Um, so back to the milk and honey, we're dealing with the Ida and the Pingala, are two fluid nerves that end in a cross in medulla oblongata, where it contacts the cerebellum. So these two substances cross and meet the medulla oblongata. This is symbolic of the Masonic institutions, skull and crossbones. So their insignia, and mind you, they don't even know. The initiates, when you go into they don't even know they signed the symbols. We're actually going more in depth. All right. Um, but just know that as well. Skull and bones, these fraternal orders and stuff like that. Know the origin, and for one, so you don't run away from it. So you don't be, oh, that's skull and bones. Oh, that's the Illuminati. That's the devil, or that. Help the people understand that everything has an origin. All right. So the oil in the spinal cord is carried up and crosses the Ida Pingala. The oil is then refined. The oil remains 2 days and a half in the cerebellum. On the third day, the oil ascends to the pineal gland. The cerebellum connects with the optic thalamus, or the central eye. The pineal gland is cone-shaped and secretes a yellow or golden fluid. The pituitary gland opposite it is ellipsoid in shape and contains a whitish secretion like milk. The oil returns after the crossing. That's the medulla, right? That's what this represents. This crossing skulls, crossing bones, rather. It enters the cerebellum, the place of the skull. Mount Calvary. Let's go back. I gotta keep reeling it in. You pop this off by talking about Mount Calvary in the Bible and how it's not a spot where Jesus got killed. It's really talking about, that's why I say it takes to the etymology on this side. You got the truth and falsehood strangely mixed, like Noble Joe Ali say, right? The etymology is the truth, which take you to the skull. That's why we've been talking about the skull right now, the inner workings of the skull. That's what Mount Calvary is. But they put it in a what? Anthropomorphic way. All right, so continuing here. The two oils travel down into the solar plexus via the semi-lunar ganglion nemogastric nerve.
Nemogastric.
So now we're talking about stuff that people can look up, verify, and study. Right? We're talking about actual the Gnostic perspective. The pituitary gland exists. The thalamus exists. Semilunar ganglion. Look up the ganglion center or the ganglion nerves. I did a demonstration on that when I talked about the 12 gates in the Circle 7 when they mentioned the 12 gates.
Those are your chakras. Am I correct? Another word or another name for them? The
Uh,
glands, the pituitary. No.
oh yeah, I mean yeah, they cover each chakra will entails a certain
Energy field.
energy field, yeah. But
Energy. Yeah,
yeah, but when I
that's
say
what I meant.
yeah, but the semilunar ganglion is something else. Like when you look that up, the ganglion centers, that's a different situation.
Ganglion. I've heard that word before, but I don't know what it. I've heard of a ganglion cyst.
Yeah, so that's part of the functions of the brain that help with cognitive abilities. In the summary. But
Okay.
yeah, everybody that's not familiar with that, look it up. Ganglion.
Ganglion.
Um, so the ida and the pingala are two nerve fluids where at the crossing of the medulla oblongata takes place and rest for 2.5 days. So we're kind of just repetition. So that's what's going on internally. So let me continue here. Keep in mind, we just dealing with Christianity. We already went through that. I'll go to the next slide, man.
I've heard that the Bible is really talking about the physical body. Really, when you and this is confirming it right here.
Yeah. Um, and also, back to the etymology, Helios Biblios, that just means sun book. So we're not, this is the within degree, but the above degree, it becomes the inner workings of the heavens, and how they affect humans as well.
Okay, I mentioned something.
Mhm.
The pneumogastric nerve is also known as the vagus nerve. It's the 10th cranial nerve and a major component of the parasympathetic nervous system.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention that because I feel like I know, like, when I hear pneumogastric nerve, never heard of that, but I'm sure we've all heard, like, maybe vagus nerve somewhere, right? Talking about breathing and relaxing and things like that.
Yeah.
It's the vagus nerve.
Yeah, but if you look up ganglion by itself, that's
Mm.
gonna take you
Semiganglion.
no, just ganglion centers. But once you're looking that up, so the oil of the Christ later descends to the sacrum. All right. Now here's another visual: skull and crossbone. So the spine has 33 vertebrae. This is where they're getting the 33-degree type of space that they're in the lodge. Um, but once again, the Moorish science is not capped at 33. We 360. But you still need to know the information on why 33 is such a thing for them. They're essentially saying they made it up to they can stand up straight. Remember, we get this to the Slav. Remember, there was Hunchback, um, Neanderthal, Neanderthals, like his pictures. If you look up, if you get the book, The Golden Age of the Moor, they got all these antique pictures and show you the Slav. They on these camels essentially, and how they look. They look like Humpty Dumpty, basically. So some of them, um, we had to teach them how to be up straight, posture, um, and information. We gave them, right. So that's the whole degrees thing. You want to read that?
Oh, okay. So I looked up ganglion centers. Ganglia are a collection of nerve cell bodies acting as relay stations in the nervous system. They are found throughout the body, both in the peripheral and central nervous system. In the peripheral nervous system, ganglia serve as the junctions between neurons, relaying information between the central nervous system and peripheral tissues. In the brain, the basal ganglia are a group of interconnected nuclei involved in motor control, cognition, emotions, and learning.
All right. So that's the neurotransmitters, cognitive abilities. If you have a thought in your mind, you want your fingers to move like this. Are you sending a signal to this area? Is it slow or is it fast? Um, so I told somebody else we need to do things to give ourselves an oil change so we can be clicking on all cylinders, mentally, physically, you know. And back to the cell salts. I know it's interrelated, but that's the whole point of the cellular salts is to get our supplements. Um, so we can do just that. So illumination works through a conscious spiritual transformation from lower mind to higher mind. All right. That's a sign that one is illuminated. So when we're looking at the Moorish headdress, and then we put this all together, we see that the Moorish fez symbolizes the higher mind, the higher self. So remember we're talking about Christianity. Don't this symbolize knowledge of the Christ? Right? We pay homage to Christianity. That's what this represents. We also know it represents the womb. Things coming through the light. Coming out the womb, the umbilical cord, the tassel. We can go 360 degrees of knowledge. We know that. We got the four gates on top representing the seasons. It's representing natural law, the natural order of things. But what's also another one of those natural order of things? Activating the Christ. That was something the ancient people of the world, they did. Once again, if there's dragons on all these temples, serpents on the pharaoh headdresses, carvings on the wall, clearly
They all were doing that.
all was doing that, practicing activating the Christ, right?
Right.
Reaching the higher self. That's the mission, right? So that's Christianity. That's what I'm
Right.
getting at. right?
That's the connection right there, like you're saying. Like, it
Right,
may
the connection.
it may have been called different things, right? But it's all the same, you know,
All the same,
practice.
right? So the feds represent that higher mind, that activation of the as well as other things I said.
Yeah.
Now, now we talk about an apron. What are we talking about here? We're talking about that symbolizes the lower self, the lower mind. So the feds represent the higher mind. If you wearing the apron, that means you're trying to control your lower self. That's symbolic for the lower self, and you're covering it. You're trying to master it. All right. So most people wearing aprons. Now, mind you, the fraternal orders took that and that now they did rocking it. But I'm talking about originally, it represent the lower self,
Yeah, I was
right?
gonna ask because I haven't seen any Moors with an apron on, but or I guess is that mainly for the
Back
Freemasons? You
back to
say?
the original, back to the original situation, right? The Slavs, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had to, like I said, it was Neanderthals. It wasn't covering up. So that was another reason. I'm just adding all the reasons why the apron for them,
Mm-hmm.
why they wore it because that's what they was working on, right? And
Right.
and just in general, that's what it represents. You know, you trying to master that. You're in process of mastering it. But if you don't
Yeah.
have it on, you don't have it on, and you just got the fizz. Now you're talking about the nobles that have mastered. So there's no need for the apron. You know what
Right.
I'm
I
saying?
guess I was asking
Yeah.
for the nobles that are practicing as well. Did they do that, or was that only for the Slavs? Was only
Originally, it was only
did
for the
the
Slavs.
only
'Cause,
for the Slav? Okay, but that's what
yeah,
it meant. Is what you're saying?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
I
it
got
meant. Yeah.
I got you.
So just think of the apron as the lower self, symbolically, and the fez as the higher self.
And they have the carpenter's tools.
Yeah, but you see the carpenter tools on this one is not a G.
Like a sun.
It's like a
Like
sun,
a
right?
son. Yeah.
Mhm. So that this will be the one of the original aprons. Um,
Well, I wonder why they incorporated the apron in like cooking. Then would that be something symbolic to that? Maybe, or I don't want to go too off on it, but that just made me think about an apron.
it's interesting. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah. And
Um, okay.
what
Where we
what book
at?
is? I'm sorry. What book is this as well? That I didn't. Maybe if you said that, I didn't get to hear that. Or
The Masonic compass and square, and
the
the
Masonic
connection.
compass.
Yeah, and the connection to measurement and timekeeping.
That's two different books, or is that the same title within the same title?
It's in the same title.
Okay.
I'll just type it in the chat.
Well, if it's being recorded, it's on there now, so I can go back
Uh,
to it too.
okay, so the etymology of Christ and its connection to Illuminati and the illumination of the mind. So Christ is derived from the Sanskrit word Krishna and means sun. The sun is used as a symbol for Illuminati, illumination of the mind and enlightenment. The philosophy of the Christ consciousness refers to the activation of the pineal gland, the third eye. Therefore, a Christian is an ancient Hindustani title that refers to one who was illuminated or enlightened. And then you have a demonstration on Sanskrit, once again, Krishna, then Greek Christos, then modern English is Christ. All right, so the Christ has risen. Oil of Christ rising to the brain, physiological regeneration and mental ascension. That's what Christianity, just to tie in, if we're talking about, Christianity, that's what it is. The practice of that, regeneration and ascension. The oil at the base of the spine, the blood of Christ, illuminating substance of the body, the healing power within the body, right? Right, because that heals you. That if it's used properly, you can heal yourself. So this is all Christianity. So anoint. So he's saying, oh, anoint. I'm the anointed one. All right. So etymology of anoint, because we've been anointed. The word anointed is derived from the Latin enungere, which means smear with oil. So most people in church, they get the little oil and they put it right here anyway. It's just rituals that they do in the church. They literally put the oil right there between the eyebrow. So I put that out there.
That the Catholic Church, right?
I've been to like Baptist church. They did that too.
So
Maybe,
yeah.
yeah.
I had a
But see,
question, real quick too.
uh,
During the time of Yeshua, when he was alive, how did they trick the people with with this the verbiage as well? Like did the people not read, or how did they just went with it, like to be anointed, and no one knew what they really meant, or I guess what I'm asking.
um, yeah, I think it just got watered down. I guess the text, but
I guess it's like used for control, right? The whole story and everything, like the rituals and stuff.
yeah, as we move forward, you have people that was using it. Like the messengers knew, like how we're talking about it, they knew it from that, but they telling their congregation, they flock, they members or whatever, they're packaging it in a running with the story. And as the
Yeah,
years go on, what that does is
just
have
just
people blind faith, and it's for control
just
purposes,
dumb down and dumb down, huh?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, I think it's all for control.
yeah, yeah. Um,
People have used it for good too. Not everybody uses the message for control, I would say. To kind of help the people.
Yeah,
But I think because it's been abused. People use the light in different ways.
yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
that's true.
All right. So the anointed one, the concept of Christ rising or Christ resurrecting is when the oil or ointment contained in the spinal cord flows back to the brain. According to Dr. George W. Carey in The Antichrist, this oil is created in a gray matter of the brain and flows down to the spine to become sexual fluid. The word anoint is derived from the Latin enungere, which means smear with oil. The anointment occurs when the oil contained in the spinal cord flows back to the brain. The Masonic apron covers the lower three chakras, the area where the oil is contained in the spinal cord. If the entered apprentice or fellow craftsman or master mason is taught true masonry, then he or she should know the ancient culture, science, and philosophy of raising the Kundalini energy, activating the divine power within to cause the oil contained in the spinal cord to rise or flow back to the brain. The etymology and denotation of the word heart in Greek will give the reader insight to the statement, quote, as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. The cerebellum is referred to as the heart in Greek. It is also shaped like a heart. Cerebellum means little brain in Latin. It is the smaller region in the lower part of the brain which plays a key role in motor control. All right. So this is all Christianity. Understanding how to raise it up.
They said releasing the flu was called Antichrist.
Yeah, because you're killing. Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was just reading that.
You're killing off the Christ. That's funny, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I wanted to go over this case. court case right here. So this is English versus Missy International Banking Incorporated. This is a case in 2025.
In 2005.
2005. And it was dealing with nationality, political status. So in the transcripts, this was what was talked about. So what then does nationality encompass if it is not to be construed as being synonymous and coextensive with national origin? Nationality has several definitions, one of which appears to embrace the national origin concept. A people having a common origin, tradition, and language, and capable of forming or actually constituting a nation state. So forming a nation state. And or an ethnic group constituting one element of a larger unit. Then it goes into the 1983 Webster's Collegiate Dictionary definition. Well, that was a definition. So in addition to national origin definition, nationality is also defined as a legal relationship involving allegiance on the part of an individual and usually protection on the part of the state and membership in a particular nation. Nationality determines the political status of the individual, especially with religion, with allegiance. The legal relationship or political status definition.
It's from the Black's Law Dictionary.
Yeah, this definition is. But this is all in the court case, though. That's the thing that you can use this as a precedent as well. So a legal relationship, political status. So defining citizenship as being the status of being a citizen who is a member of a state. So then it goes into some colorful stuff down here. But the first part of it, what highlights to me is it's well known that it got to be unity. It went from saying membership. What is membership of a nation? Right? Most people think membership in the sense of like, oh, I'm joining an organization. But member and citizen is the same thing. That's what I'm getting at. It's the same thing. And y'all got allegiance. All members have allegiance to whatever we got going on. And we got a culture. These are all signifiers of a nation state. So this court case interests me. And I wanted to highlight that. Yeah, I think I went through my whole. Oh, all right. No, this is another aspect to that case, and it was also, if y'all look up 8 U.S.C. 1481, it states that citizenship in the United States is lost when a formal declaration is made regarding allegiance to a nation, including military, militia service in said nation, or declaration of nationality. So this is why we declare our nationality, because that dissolves the courts. That's all I see when I read this. And they stuff. Once you declare your nationality, there's no U.S. citizenship no more.
That's why Noble Drew Ali was like no nationality order of the day. And then 1774, when we lost our nationality by clinging to the Christian thought. And this is, basically that. How I look at it. Remind me of that.
Yeah.
So taking on the 14th Amendment is like, taking on the Christian thought. It's like, no, I'll give that back to them, because that's how you lose your citizenship. Sorry.
Any thoughts on that for transition to the Circle 7? And then close out and go over the Treasury report for this month.
No, that was great, yeah.
Let's see.
I had a statement or a question as well, but the case law is just really confirming what you're saying is I would say the reason is why you're reading that as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Figured that.
Yep. Yeah. It's there decisive. Yep. I'll put that at. There you go. All right, so this is where we left off. So I just went to the next chapter last week. We're on the chapter dealing with charity. So happy is the man who hath sown in his breast the seeds of benevolence. The produce thereof shall be charity and love. From the fountain of his heart shall rise rivers of goodness, and streams shall overflow for the benefit of mankind. He assisteth the poor in their trouble. He rejoiceth in furthering the prosperity of all men. He censureth not his neighbor. He believeth not the tales of envy and malevolence. Neither repeateth he their slanders. He forgiveth the injuries of men. He wipeth them from his remembrance. Revenge and malice have no place in his heart. For evil he returneth not evil. He hath not even his enemies, but requith their injustice with a friendly admonition. The griefs and anxieties of men excite his compassion. He endeavoreth to alleviate the weight of their misfortune, and the pleasure of success rewardeth his labor. He calmeth the fury. He healeth the quarrels of angry men, and preventeth the mischiefs of strife and animosity. He promoteth in his neighborhood peace and goodwill, and his name is repeated with praise and benedictions. So charity. Charity, as you can see in that chapter, is not always monetary. It could be just a ear. When somebody needs, you might want to vent. Somebody hears you out, gives you hits you with some possible solutions that they may not have thought about, and very supportive. That's charity. Charity is also giving money. And most importantly, if you've made it to the heart chakra degree, once again, you're just dealing with people from that kit in that vein. Your mind is calibrated like that when you're dealing with humans in general. Humanitarian, Therefore, you're charitable. Any thoughts, statements on that?
I do have a comment to say on that. Sometimes, like when lending an ear to people, it's not always that person wants to get some advice or have a solution. Sometimes they just want space to be able to say whatever they need to say and get off their chest, and then have that support after they go through that. So sometimes not just finding a solution, but also providing that space. So I just wanted to add that on there.
Any other thoughts, comments, statements? Close out in prayer here, and then go over the Treasury report.
like great demonstration, man. For sure.
Appreciate it.
Likewise, Islam.
Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day. To his holy prophet, Noble Jew Ali. Amen. All right, so let me end the recording.